This is gonna take a while. Hey, how's it going? In today's video, we're taking a look at the Murasame Liger from Takara Tomy. This kit was released in January of 2024, and I got it from Taiwan, costing me 2,650 Taiwanese dollars, which at the time of the video, the exchange rate would be $113.36 Canadian. This is the third kit to be released in the Zoids 40th anniversary line, following the Liger Zero and Blade Liger, both kits which I already reviewed on my channel. The Murasame Liger first appeared in Zoids Genesis, an underrated Zoids anime which I really liked. Plot was alright, but I really loved the designs of the Zoids, so I knew I had to get this kit when it was released. Unfortunately, there's no high-end master model for the Murasame Liger. Well, at least no legit version of it. But I got the next best thing, and being a 40th anniversary Zoid, it looks absolutely amazing. But don't take my word for it, let's start this review. Okay, as the box art goes, it's pretty generic. It's actually the model kit itself. Same style of box art, just like the other anniversary Zoids. So you already know what to expect when you build this kit. Also, it's motorized, and of course, doesn't come with batteries. You're gonna need 2 AAA batteries. And of course, these boxes never have anything on the side of them, so everything is in the back. Got a bunch of text on the back here. Of course, feel free to pause if you want to read it. We also got some additional images highlighting the motorized function, as well as the blade gimmick, which I find pretty interesting for the Zoid. And lastly, an image showing all the armor bits that will go on the inner frame. Speaking of inner frame, here it is. It is a Takara Tomy Zoid, so like always, I always feel the need to show off the inner frame before I put the armor on. And just like the previous anniversary Zoids I reviewed, the build of the inner frame is very similar in that you do build around the motor, and there are some parts I do remember using for the previous anniversary Zoids. All the while, of course, being very easy to build. Compared to Kotobukiya's high-end master model, there aren't that many parts. And we're just gonna ignore the tear in the manual, bit of the tape got stuck. Just like the other Takara Tomy Zoids, this build is very beginner friendly. You will also have some leftover parts indicated by the X on the manual, so feel free to throw them out or keep them if you want. Also, if you've never built a 40th anniversary Zoid, you are given this tool over here. You'll need it to actually tighten a lot of these caps. There are 3 sizes for these caps. This medium one you can use the tool to tighten, while the larger ones you can actually use your hands to tighten. The smaller size are the gray pieces over here, which you use the other end of this tool. Try not to overly tighten anything, there's only a certain point it could turn. If you go any more, you can just grind out the piece. After you're done with the tool, you can actually store the tool underneath the display base. In addition, for these 40th anniversary Zoids, some of the parts do come pre-painted, usually using metallic paints, which is actually pretty cool. Like in this runner here, you can see a lot of the silver is already pre-painted right on. These are the pieces I mentioned earlier that were found on the other anniversary Zoids. And for my own particular kit, I didn't see any issues with the actual painting, didn't see any streaking, and paints were in the line. But also keep in mind this may vary between each individual kit. And of course the benefit of these painted pieces are they add color to the kit. At least when you're just looking at the inner frame. But when you get all that armor on it, yeah, it kinda disappears. Well, this is the Murasame Liger, complete straight build with some moderate amount of panel lining, and with most of the stickers being used, of which there's a decent amount. And from afar, it doesn't look too bad, but when you get closer, you start seeing the lines of the stickers themselves. Yeah, not very attractive seeing the outlines like that. They blend in slightly better on the teal parts, but on the clear plastic over here on the cowl, it doesn't look that great. And though applying the stickers weren't too difficult, I did have to cut around the stickers just to make them conform into the shape a little better. But still, it adds nice detail onto the kit. But if you prefer not to use the stickers, it still looks very good. Also, now that he's all armored up, there are some things I want to point out. You see this clear piece on his face. We are given 2 clear parts, one is for the eye lens, which doesn't have any bad nub marks. But this face cowl does come pre-cut already, so you don't actually cut it, but there is a little bit of a nub mark on it. Just want to point that out, and of course, clear parts, try to keep them away from other parts so they don't scratch it. Since we're speaking of nub marks as well, as for nub marks, they're very far and few between. The plastic is quite soft, so it doesn't leave any stress marks when you snip it. And because of the soft plastic, all the nubs that you do get, you can just easily shave off. I thought the teal plastic would definitely leave a mark, but it's pretty minimal. Overall, you're left with a very menacing looking Liger, with a pretty cool color palette. And it is a Zoid, so very good surface level detail, good for panel lining. I just like how the teal parts look, so I didn't bother panel lining those. Absolutely love the mechanical elements sticking out through the inner frame. Just too bad the majority of the painted parts are covered up. Overall, the body's design looks absolutely amazing. But let's address the elephant in the room, this giant chrome blade sword. The giant sword is separate from the rest of the kit, not made into a runner, which means no nub marks. And you can see it's not fully chromed out, which makes sense, the attachment point doesn't need it. Additionally, you can see writing etched into the blade itself, which is very cool. But of course, it's chrome, so it's easy to see dust and fingerprint marks. A very unique weapon. Is it ridiculous? Yes, it is. But is it cool? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Also, important thing I want to point out when you're assembling the blade arm, K3 over here should be reversed. There was an error in this part of the manual, but they do provide a correction in this piece of paper that comes with the kit. Yeah, so just follow the instructions. Also, when you're assembling the blade arm, it does come with a spring, a really tiny small spring. So until you build this arm, keep it somewhere safe so you don't lose it. But pretty much I have no issues with the appearance whatsoever. I think it's absolutely badass looking. Always had a soft spot for the Murasame Liger. It's very big and bulky looking, and the proportions look very good. So far the anniversary designs have not let me down whatsoever. Well, except for those hollow pieces that face the inside of the legs. I don't know why Takara Tomy never fills them in. Granted, they did a better job on this kit, though I'm just probably nitpicking, it's not a big deal. Kit looks great, so let's move on to the articulations, which you already know because it's a Takara Tomy kit. There won't be much. Because it's already motorized, there's not going to be much articulation. The head barely has any moving parts, with the only exception being the cockpit, which could lift up, revealing the pilot figure that comes with the kit. And within that cockpit, there's only like this back brace that's able to move up and down. Next up, moving on to the legs, pretty much all the paws are able to move up and down. Not really for articulation, just mostly for the motor function. Though that's not all we have over here. On the forelegs, there are two pile bunkers, used for when the Liger wants to make high-speed turns. You're also able to retract or extend the pile bunkers, sliding them up and down, with this little tab over here, which is a pretty cool, interesting gimmick. Now moving on to the main body, the only point of articulation is the weapon and weapon attachment. The Murasame blade is able to unfold itself 180 degrees, with the scabbard-like arm being able to unfold itself 90 degrees as well, and with the base of the arm allowing it to rotate 180 degrees. Additionally, you can extend the weapon arm ever so slightly just by pulling it out, if you feel that the long blade isn't long enough. The whole weapon attachment sits on this ring that has a ratchet joint, allowing it to be positioned 180 degrees around the Murasame Liger. And yes, in fact, it is pretty fun to play around with. Now lastly, we have the tail, which is connected on with a C-hook. It's able to move up and down, but can't really hold the position. At the end of the tail, you could rotate it, and that's it for articulation. Yeah, if you didn't know, motorized Zoids are very limited in articulation, so you won't be able to put it in a lot of poses, which is very unfortunate because they look so damn good. Moving along, as for extras and accessories, it does come with a display base, similar to the ones on the previous anniversary Zoids. And you got a perfect placement for one of the decals, which I did put on. When you flip the kit over, there's a square slot underneath where you can insert the peg of the base. It's not a particularly strong connection, but it does a good job holding up the large kit. Just be careful that when you move it, hold on to the kit, not just the display base. You're also given a small pilot figure, which has some nice detail on it if you want to paint it up. And if you don't want to use it, keep it somewhere safe so you don't lose it. Additionally, this kit also comes with auxiliary claws for walking. I guess they're there to act as stabilizers, but they don't particularly look that great. Though at least they're easy to install and remove. But if you don't like them, you can store them into the armor piece on the back. Next up, being a motorized kit, let's take a look at the motorized function. Flipping it over, you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver and two AAA batteries, because batteries don't come included. With the batteries installed, you can hit this switch on the butt, and just like the other anniversary kits, the motor is quite loud. And I'm not sure why, but the legs don't really walk properly on my backdrop. And those auxiliary claws don't really help much either. Maybe because the fabric is slippery, but it seems to work fine on the floor. And here on the display base, you can see all the moving parts that's happening when you turn on the motor. Never been a big fan of motorized kits, but I respect the engineering that goes in it. Now of course, the batteries aren't just powering the motor, we also have some lights. Just like the previous anniversary Zoids. Though this one doesn't have glowing claws. And with all the lights gone, you can see the LEDs much more clearly shining through the chest and the head. In the dark, you can see how bright the LEDs are actually. Aside from this review, I'm never going to be using this function again, but it's very cool to have. Now you'll also be happy to know that just like the other anniversary Zoid kits, this kit is absolutely solid. Well, except for that tail. But I've always wondered how well they would hold up after a couple years. I do remember the older Zoid kits kind of falling apart after a while. Let me know if you'd be interested if I revisit these kits in a couple years. But as of now, it's still very solid. Now as for dimensions, as it stands right now, this kit is 7 inches or over 17 centimeters. The whole length of the Liger itself, not including the blade, is 15 inches or a little bit over 38 centimeters. And if you're wondering, the blade itself is around 11 inches, a little bit under 28 centimeters, so it's going to add some additional length depending on how you position it. And that also means if you have that blade extended out, it's not going to fit in any of the details. Lastly, if you're using the stand, it does make it around 9 inches tall. Now as for size comparison, here it is next to the entry grade RX-72, master grade RX-72, the high-end master model Koenig Wolf. The Murasame Liger is in the same scale, being 1/72nd scale, so they're roughly around the same size, except with the Murasame Liger being a little bit bulkier. And when compared to the previous anniversary Zoids, they're pretty much all the same size. I love how though they are all Ligers, they look extremely different from one another. And it's pretty cool to actually see them side by side like this. Then we got Haro, Doraemon, DK, Lloyd, Yor, Anya, Bond, and a rubber ducky. And like I said earlier, with the tail and the blade extended, you're not going to be able to make it fit into the details. So I decided to stick them into my larger Mills Bowl cabinet next to the other anniversary Zoids. And it looks pretty good with all the other Ligers. So it concludes another review of the Takara Tomy Murasame Liger. What are my final thoughts? Well, because it is a Takara Tomy anniversary Zoid, it looks absolutely beautiful. Huge fan of the giant katana. Looks absolutely ridiculous, but very cool nonetheless. There aren't too many parts, so the build is very easy, and I would actually highly recommend it for beginners. And we already know it's motorized, so there's not much of articulation here, which is unfortunate. Though not a fan of the light up gimmicks, still pretty cool to have. At this point, the only concern I have is that I guess the kit is kind of expensive. I got it in Taiwan and it cost me over $100 Canadian, so I expect importing this, buying it somewhere else, it might cost even more. Like right now on Hobby Link Japan, it's already close to 12,000 yen. As far as the kit goes, I think it's just really expensive. But that's just my 2 cents. With inflation and everything and how Zoids are, they've always been expensive. But thanks for watching my video. I hope you like it. I enjoy making it. Let me know what you think. Would you actually get this kit? Or is it just too expensive? And what do you think about the design? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching. Take care. Bye.